The evening rain drummed softly against the windows of Miller's diner, casting long shadows across the worn linoleum floor. Sarah wiped down the last table of her shift, her movements careful and practiced despite the exhaustion that weighed on her shoulders. The diner was nearly empty now, save for a few late-night customers nursing their coffee and the quiet businessman in the corner booth who had been watching her work for the past hour. Michael Harrison adjusted his worn baseball cap and took another sip of his lukewarm coffee. For 3 weeks now, he had been visiting different locations of his restaurant chain, disguised as just another customer. As the CEO of Harrison Food Group, he believed in seeing his businesses from the ground up, understanding what really happened when the corporate suits weren't around. But tonight, something had caught his attention that made him forget all about operational assessments and profit margins. Sarah moved with a quiet efficiency that spoke of years spent in service work. She couldn't be more than 25, Michael thought, but there was something in her eyes that suggested she had seen more than her share of hardship. Her uniform was clean but faded, pressed carefully despite its obvious age. What struck him most was how she interacted with every customer, genuine smiles, patient attention, a warmth that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside despite whatever troubles she might be carrying. The night manager, Tom, emerged from the kitchen with a large bag of leftover bread rolls. "Sarah, you know the drill," he called out. "These need to go in the dumpster. Corporate policy says we can't keep day-old bread." Michael watched as Sarah's face fell slightly, though she quickly masked the expression. "Of course, Tom. I'll take care of it." She took the bag and headed toward the back door that led to the alley behind the diner. Michael found himself rising from his seat, something compelling him to follow. He left money on the table and walked quietly toward the back of the restaurant, where he could see through the window into the narrow alley. What he saw made him stop in his tracks. Sarah had opened the bag of bread rolls, but instead of throwing them into the dumpster, she was carefully placing them into her own small backpack. Her movements were quick, furtive, as if she was afraid of being caught. But there was no greed in her actions, no casual theft. There was something else entirely, something that looked like desperation mixed with love. As Sarah turned to go back inside, Michael quickly returned to his booth, his mind racing. He watched as she finished her closing duties with the same careful attention to detail she had shown all evening. When she finally hung up her apron and prepared to leave, Michael made a decision that would change both their lives. He followed her at a distance as she walked through the quiet streets. The rain had stopped, but the pavement still glistened under the streetlights. Sarah walked with purpose, her backpack heavy with its precious cargo, until she reached a part of town that Michael rarely saw from his corner office downtown. The buildings here were older, weathered by time and neglect, but there was still dignity in their worn facades. Sarah stopped at a narrow alley between two apartment buildings. Michael hung back, hidden in the shadows, and watched as the most extraordinary scene unfolded before him. From the darkness emerged two small figures, children, he realized, a boy who couldn't be more than 8 and a girl who might have been 5. They were thin, their clothes clean but patched, and their faces lit up with pure joy when they saw Sarah approaching. "Emma, Marcus," Sarah whispered, kneeling down to embrace them. "Both. Did you wait for me like I asked?" The little girl, Emma, nodded eagerly. "We were good, Sarah. We stayed hidden and quiet, just like you taught us." Marcus, trying to be brave like the older brother he was, stood a little straighter. "I took care of Emma. We shared the crackers you left us this morning." Michael felt his throat tighten as he watched Sarah open her backpack and begin distributing the bread rolls. The children's eyes grew wide with delight, as if she had just presented them with the finest feast imaginable. "Fresh bread," Sarah said softly, her voice full of a tenderness that made Michael's heart ache. "Still soft and warm. There's enough for tonight and tomorrow's breakfast too." As the three of them sat together on a makeshift cardboard mat, sharing the bread under the dim glow of a distant streetlight, Sarah told them stories. Her voice was gentle and soothing, painting pictures of far-off places and grand adventures. Emma curled up against her side, while Marcus listened with the serious attention of a child who had learned too early to treasure these moments of security and love. Michael remained hidden, watching this family that wasn't quite a family, bound together by something stronger than blood. He could see now what he had missed in all his corporate reports and profit analyses. Here was the real story of his business, the human cost of policies made in boardrooms by people who had never known what it meant to go hungry. Quietly, Michael retreated, his mind already working on what he needed to do. The next morning, he arrived at the diner before dawn, this time wearing his usual business suit instead of the disguise that had hidden his identity. Tom, the night manager who was just finishing his shift, looked startled when the well-dressed stranger approached. "I'm Michael Harrison," he said simply. "I own this place." Tom's face went pale. "Mr. Harrison, I had no idea you were. Is everything okay? Did we do something wrong?" "Actually, you did something very right," Michael replied. "I want to know about Sarah. The waitress who worked last night. Tell me her story." Tom hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "She's a good worker, sir. Never missed a shift, always on time, customers love her. But, well, she's got those kids she's taking care of. Not hers, you understand. She found them sleeping rough a few months back, brother and sister whose parents, well, let's just say they're not in the picture anymore. Sarah's been looking after them ever since, trying to keep them fed and safe while she saves up enough money to get them all a proper place to live." Michael nodded slowly. "And the bread?" Tom's shoulders sagged. "I know about that too, sir. I've been looking the other way because it seemed like the right thing to do. Those kids need food more than our dumpster does. If you want to fire me—" "I don't want to fire anyone," Michael said quietly. "I want to help. Can you get Sarah to come in this afternoon? Tell her there's someone who wants to speak with her. And Tom, from now on, that day-old bread policy is officially changed. Good food shouldn't go to waste when there are people who need it." That afternoon, Sarah arrived at the diner with obvious nervousness written across her face. She had changed from her work uniform into her best dress, which Michael could see had been mended carefully in several places. When she saw him sitting in the same booth where he had watched her the night before, recognition flickered in her eyes. "You were here last night," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was. Please, sit down, Sarah. My name is Michael Harrison, and I think we need to talk." Sarah's hand went instinctively to her throat, and Michael could see the fear in her eyes. "I don't know what you think you saw, but I saw someone taking care of family," Michael said gently. "I saw someone who puts love ahead of rules, who finds ways to feed hungry children even when it might cost her job. I saw exactly the kind of person I want to have working for me." Tears began to form in Sarah's eyes. "Please don't call the police. Emma and Marcus, they don't have anywhere else to go. I know I don't have legal custody, but I'm trying to do right by them. I'm saving every penny I can to get us all a proper place." "Sarah," Michael interrupted softly, "I'm not here to take anything away from you. I'm here to offer you something better." Over the next hour, Michael explained who he was and what he had seen. He watched Sarah's expression change from fear to confusion to wonder as he outlined his proposal. A management position at the corporate office, with a salary that would allow her to rent a real apartment for the three of them. Health insurance that would cover the children. And most importantly, his personal help in navigating the legal system to make her guardianship of Emma and Marcus official. "Why?" Sarah asked, her voice thick with emotion. "Why would you do this for someone you don't even know?" Michael was quiet for a long moment, thinking of his own childhood, of the grandmother who had raised him after his parents died, of the sacrifices she had made that he had never fully understood until now. "Because sometimes the most important qualities in a person can't be taught in business school," he said finally. "Compassion, integrity, the ability to put others' needs ahead of your own, those are the things that make a real leader. You've been managing the most important project in the world, taking care of those children, and you've been doing it with nothing but determination and love. I think you can bring those same qualities to helping me run a company." 6 months later, Michael stood at the window of his office, looking down at the city below. On his desk was a photograph that never failed to make him smile: Sarah, Emma, and Marcus in their new apartment, the first real home the children had ever known. Sarah had proven to be everything he had hoped and more, bringing a heart-centered approach to business that was transforming the entire company culture. The bread policy had been just the beginning. Under Sarah's influence, Harrison Food Group had started a program to donate surplus food to local shelters and food banks. They had implemented living wage standards for all employees and created a fund to help workers facing emergencies. The changes had not only improved countless lives but had also improved the company's reputation and, surprisingly, its profits. A soft knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Sarah entered, carrying a folder and wearing the confident smile of someone who had found her place in the world. "The quarterly reports are ready," she said, setting the folder on his desk. "And I have some news. Emma got accepted into the gifted program at school, and Marcus made the honor roll again." "That's wonderful," Michael said, meaning it completely. "You must be so proud." "Every day," Sarah replied. "You know, sometimes I think about that night in the alley, when you saw me with the bread. I was so scared, so worried about what would happen if anyone found out. I never imagined that being caught doing what I thought was right would lead to all this." Michael nodded. "The best decisions we make are usually the ones we make with our hearts, not our heads. You taught me that." As Sarah left to return to her work, Michael reflected on how much his life had changed since that rainy night at the diner. He had started that undercover visit thinking he was investigating his employees, looking for problems to fix and inefficiencies to eliminate. Instead, he had discovered something far more valuable, a reminder of what really mattered, delivered by a young woman who had risked everything to take care of 2 children who weren't even her own. The bread that Sarah had saved from the dumpster had been just the beginning. It had led to a family, a new career, and a complete transformation of how Michael understood success. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness, he had learned, could change everything, not just for the people who receive them, but for the people who were lucky enough to witness them. In the end, it wasn't just Sarah and the children whose lives had been transformed. Michael had found something he hadn't even realized he was looking for, a purpose that went beyond profit margins and quarterly reports, a way to use his success to create more success for others. The evening sun cast long shadows across his office as Michael picked up the phone to call Sarah's extension. There was a new program he wanted to discuss, a scholarship fund for children aging out of the foster care system. He knew Sarah would have ideas about how to make it work, how to reach the kids who needed it most. After all, she understood better than anyone how much difference one person could make in a child's life, armed with nothing more than determination, love, and a bag full of day-old bread.